Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are tonight's headlines.
Nuclear-armed North Korea fired a presumed short-range missile into the sea on Tuesday, according to the South's military, as Pyongyang's UN ambassador insisted it had an undeniable right to test its weapons.
South Korea launches a new 3,000-ton class submarine capable of firing ballistic missiles.
President Duterte said that the vaccination of children and the general population could hopefully be done within October due to the increasing vaccine deliveries to the country.
50%.
And Russia records its highest daily virus death toll yet, with 852 fatalities, following an increase in cases linked to the Delta variant and a lackluster vaccination drive.
Nuclear-armed North Korea fired a presumed short-range missile into the sea today, according to the South's military, as Pyongyang's UN ambassador insisted it had an undeniable right to test its weapons. Less than an hour later, Pyongyang's United Nations ambassador Kim Song told the UN General Assembly in New York, "Nobody can deny the right to self-defense for the DPRK." Let's listen in.
우리가 그들이 보유하고 있거나 개발하고 있는 것과 동등한 무기 체계를 개발, 시험, 제작, 보유하는 것은 그 누구도 부정할 수 없는 정당한 권리입니다. 우리는 우리 스스로를 지키고 나라의 안전과 평화를 믿음직하게 수호하기 위해 국방을 강화하고 있는 것입니다.
The projectile was fired from the northern province of Jagang into waters off the east coast, according to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff and a Japanese Defense Ministry spokesman, telling this to AFP that it appears to be a ballistic missile. It was the latest in a series of mixed messages from Pyongyang, coming days after leader Kim Jong-un's influential sister, Kim Yo-jong, a key advisor to her brother, dangled the prospect of an inter-Korean summit. But she insisted that impartiality and mutual respect would be required, calling for the South Korea to stop spouting an impudent remark. She condemned as double standards South Korea and U.S. criticism of the North's military developments while the allies build up their own capacities.
Meanwhile, South Korea launches a new 3,000-ton class submarine capable of firing ballistic missiles. The new submarine is named after a Korean independence activist, Shin Chae-ho, and the launch ceremony took place at the shipyard of Hyundai Heavy Industries in the southeastern city of Ulsan. It is the third and the final of three Changbogo 3 Batch 1 submarines South Korea has been building with homegrown technologies under a project launched in 2007. All of them are capable of firing submarine-launched ballistic missiles, or SLBM. On September 15, South Korea successfully test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile, becoming only the seventh country in the world with the advanced technology. South Korea has been advancing its military capabilities as it seeks to counter the threat posed by the nuclear-armed North. It is also seeking to secure the transfer of operational control over its forces in wartime from the U.S. under the terms of their alliance.
Meanwhile, President Duterte has raised concern over the new Trilateral Security Pact among Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, or AUKUS, according to Malacanang. In a virtual press conference, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the president would meet with his cabinet to discuss the AUKUS alliance and raise the issue, as he is worried the Trilateral Pact could trigger a nuclear arms race. Take a look.
He said that this will be discussed in the full cabinet meeting, although he expressed concern about a regional nuclear arms race. But he will discuss this further with the cabinet and will come up with a clear position after the meeting of the cabinet.
AUKUS alliance is seen to counter China's growing life influence in the Indo-Pacific, specifically in the South China Sea, where it lays claim on nearly 80% of the strategic water under its so-called 9-dash line that has been invalidated by the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration's 2016 ruling. The pact also aims to provide Australia the technology to build nuclear-powered submarines, a partnership denounced by China because of its supposed risks to intensify the arms race and undermine international non-proliferation efforts. Last week, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. also welcomed the AUKUS partnership, citing its benefit to maintaining peace and security in the Southeast Asia. Roque on Monday expressed hope that the Trilateral Pact would not violate the Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone Treaty, an agreement inked by the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, in 1995 to preserve the region as a nuclear weapon-free zone and free from all other weapons of mass destruction.
The meeting of the cabinet.
In other news, Germany is headed 4 weeks, if not months, of protracted coalition haggling as Chancellor Angela Merkel's conservatives insisted Monday on trying to form a government, even after losing to the Social Democrats in a tight race. Finance Minister Olaf Scholz, who led the Social Democrats' campaign, said Europe's biggest power would not be thrown off by the power struggle, stressing that Germany would remain stable even as parties scramble for coalition partners. Take a look.
And you should know Germany always has coalition. First, my idea is that we will be very fast in getting a result for this government, and it should be before Christmas if possible. On the other hand, you should know Germany always has coalition governments, and it was always stable.
I think we could see coalition negotiations in which the smaller parties, the Greens and the FDP, have the leverage. They signaled yesterday that they plan to talk with each other before they engage in discussions with the CDU, CSU, or the SPD. And if they can reach a consensus on a sort of governing blueprint, then they can essentially sell their ideas to the highest bidder.
Meanwhile, Thailand agreed to have its mandatory quarantine to 7 days for fully vaccinated visitors starting next month. And it will also remove any isolation period for such travelers in 10 key provinces, including Bangkok, in November to help revive its tourism-dependent economy. Joining us live from Bangkok, here's Crystal Mapa. Hello, Crystal. Please tell us more about this.
Hi, Alma. Yes, Thailand is to cut the quarantine for vaccinated travelers to 7 days starting in October as it seeks to revive its battered tourism industry. Pre-pandemic, Thailand attracted nearly 40 million visitors a year, but COVID-related travel restrictions have hammered the sector, contributing to the economy's worst performance in more than 20 years. The kingdom is pushing to reopen despite still being in the grips of a deadly third wave of infections, driven by the Delta variant. Authorities said that starting on Friday, the quarantine period for fully jabbed visitors will be 7 days, halved from the current 14-day period, provided they have a vaccination certificate. Visitors without certification will have to quarantine for 10 days if they enter by plane and 14 days if they come over land. All will require at least 2 negative COVID tests. The relaxation also applies to Thailand's so-called sandbox scheme in Phuket, its most popular beach island, which was launched in July as a first step towards restarting tourism. The scheme allowed vaccinated tourists to enter without having to undergo a strict hotel quarantine and after 14 days spent on the island, as well as 3 negative COVID tests to travel elsewhere in Thailand. From Friday, this 14-day restriction will also be cut to 7 days. Authorities plan to reopen 5 other tourist destinations, including Bangkok, using the sandbox model on November 1st, followed by 20 more in December. One cloud hanging over Thailand's plans is the travel advice of other countries, discouraging would-be tourists from visiting. Britain and the US have issued travel advisories against Thailand due to its rising case numbers and low vaccination rates. The kingdom is still recording more than 10,000 new infections a day, bringing its cumulative total on Monday to more than 1.57 million and its death toll to 16,300. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Crystal, for that update. I guess every part of this world is trying to revive its economy. Thank you very much for that, and looking forward to more updates coming out of Bangkok and Thailand, of course.
Yes, Alma, thank you. And reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, this is Crystal Mapa. We live in interesting times.
Back here in the Philippines now, President Rodrigo Duterte said that the vaccination of children and the general population could hopefully be done within October due to the increasing vaccine deliveries to the country. In his talk to the people on September 27, the president said that the country is expecting at least 100 million vaccine doses by the end of October, citing the report of Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. Because of this, the president said we can expand the vaccination program to the general population and hopefully also our children within October. Take a look.
Have been declining. Many cities, particularly in Metro Manila, Baguio, Cebu, Iloilo, and Davao, have already surpassed 50% vaccination of the target population. According to Secretary Galvez, we will get a total of at least 100 million doses by the end of October, which means that maybe we can expand the vaccination program to the general population and hopefully also our children within October. Also, we continue to ramp up our vaccination drive and are targeting to administer around a total of 55 million vaccines by October. I am pleased to report that over the past several days, the number of new COVID-19 cases have been declining, and the reproduction rate has also been decreasing. Well, maybe within the last 2 days, there was a light spike, but overall, over the entire country, it is decreasing.
The NTF is just waiting for the go signal from the World Health Organization and the country's National Immunization Technical Advisory Group so the country could start vaccinating children, as well as give booster shots to health frontliners who are working in COVID wards or those exposed to attending to COVID-19 cases. Vaccines against COVID-19 are said to be effective up to 6 months since the administration of the full dose.
Meanwhile, the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, or RITM, will complete its investigation report on the Philippine Red Cross, or PRC, Subic chapter's false positives COVID-19 tests by October 8. In his report during President Rodrigo Duterte's pre-recorded talk to the people, aired Monday night, Department of Health, or DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III said an initial investigation showed all of the 49 total hospital personnel have tested positive in swab tests processed by the PRC's molecular laboratory in Subic. Let's hear more.
5 po ang nag-positive. Well, Mr. President, yung pong preliminary report po sa akin ay yung sa PRC Logistics and Training Center sa Subic. Ito po yung sumuri ng mga nasopharyngeal swab. Ito po sa throat at saka sa may ilong. Yung 49 out of 49, lumalabas po na nag-positive. So 100%, lahat. No exception, lahat nag-positive. That was a result that was released on September 3, 2020. So ang ginawa po nung mga nagkaroon ng positive test results sa PRC, sa Logistic and Training Center sa Subic, nagduda po sila. So pupunta ngayon sila sa Medical City Clark Laboratory. At doon po, September 6, nagpa-swab ulit sila, nasopharyngeal and oropharyngeal swab. At lumalabas, out of the 49, 5 po ang nag-positive lamang. So 10% lang po compared sa 100% sa kabila. Ngayon po, kasalukuyan ay iniimbestigahan po ng Research Institute for Tropical Medicine at meron po silang report na lalabas pa lang makukumpleto ang kanilang investigation, Mr. President, by October 8.
President Duterte previously asked the DOH to probe the false positive incidents. President Duterte said the PRC Chairman, Senator Richard Gordon, should have done his supervision job properly.
And the president said French pharmaceutical giant Sanofi says it is stopping work on an mRNA vaccine against COVID-19 despite positive test results as it lags behind rivals on producing a shot. The company said it would focus instead on another type of jab it is developing with British drug maker GlaxoSmithKline and which is in the final phase of human trials. Instead, the company will use the mRNA technology for vaccines against other pathogens, including the flu. Sanofi's Vice President for Vaccines, Thomas Triumph, told AFP that the need is not to create new COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, but to equip France and Europe with an arsenal of messenger RNA vaccines for the next pandemic. For new pathologies, he said, there is no public health need for another messenger RNA vaccine against COVID-19. Messenger RNA works by providing human cells with the genetic instructions to make a surface protein of the coronavirus, which trains the immune system to recognize the real virus. Sanofi said initial results for the mRNA product now showed antibodies were created by 91 to 100% of test participants 2 weeks after a second injection. No side effects were observed and tolerance of the jab was comparable to other mRNA vaccines developed by Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna.
Meanwhile, New York hospitals have begun firing or suspending healthcare workers for defying a state order to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Foreseeing staff shortages, authorities are prompted or some hospitals to postpone their elective surgeries to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Healthcare workers who are fired for refusing to get vaccinated will not be eligible for unemployment insurance unless they are able to provide a valid doctor-approved request for medical accommodation. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio told the news conference the city's hospitals were not yet seeing a major impact from the mandate. According to CNN, meanwhile, New York Governor Kathy Hochul said she plans to sign an executive order to give herself the power to address any healthcare worker shortages when the state's healthcare vaccine mandate goes into effect overnight, Monday into Tuesday.
The president receives public COVID jab after FDA and CDC carved out fewer categories than he hoped of Americans eligible for the third dose. Take a look.
Now, I know it doesn't look like it, but I am over 65. I wish I way over. And that's why I'm getting my booster shot today. The booster line, let me be clear, boosters are important. But the most important thing we need to do is get more people vaccinated.
About 60 million people in the United States are eligible for a Pfizer booster shot. Biden said that last week. He said people who have received Moderna or Johnson & Johnson vaccinations could get boosters once studies have been completed, and he expected that all Americans would be eligible in the near term. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said Friday that data on Moderna and J&J boosters would be evaluated in the coming weeks.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. CJ and I will be back right after this.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. Russia records its highest daily virus death toll yet, with 852 fatalities following an increase in cases linked to the Delta variant and a lackluster vaccination drive. Now, a government tally reported 852 fatalities over the past 24 hours, a record in Russia since the start of the pandemic. The new figure brings the country's total deaths from COVID-19 to 205,531, the highest toll in Europe. Statistics agency Rosstat reported in late August that Russia had seen more than 350,000 fatalities. Russia, the world's fifth worst-hit country with more than 7 million infections, has seen cases climb since last month as vaccinations stall. Moscow, the epicenter of Russia's outbreak, has experienced a spike over the past week, with authorities warning of rising hospital admissions. Deputy Mayor Anastasia Rakova has said that the highly contagious Delta variant now accounts for all of the cases in the Russian capital. Authorities face a vaccine-skeptic population, with polls showing that a majority of Russians don't plan to get jabbed. The Kremlin initially set a goal of fully inoculating 60% of Russia's population by September. but later dropped that target even though free jabs have been available since early December.
In other news, India's drug regulator allows vaccine maker Serum Institute to enroll 7 to 11 years old or year-olds for its COVID-19 vaccine trial as the country prepares to protect children from the coronavirus. The country of 1.4 billion has already administered more than 870 million doses to adults. According to a Reuters report, Serum Institute is already conducting a trial of its COVID-19 vaccine, a domestically produced version of U.S. drug maker Novavax's shot in the 12 to 17 age group, and has presented safety data for an initial 100 participants.
Meanwhile, India's cases dropped below 20,000 for the first time in over 6 months, as the country reported 18,795 infections in the last 24 hours, bringing the total caseload to 33.7 million. According to Nikkei News, fatalities rose by 179 to 447,373. Meanwhile, the country has administered 10.2 million vaccine shots since Monday morning, the fifth time that the 10 million mark was crossed in a single day since achieving the feat first in late August, bringing the total number of doses to 870.7 million.
Now, Oriental Land, which operates Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea, plans to increase the number of visitors to its resort from the current 5,000 per day at each park to 10,000 starting from Friday, now that the Japanese government has decided to lift the long-standing COVID-19 state of emergency at the end of September. The theme park needs approval from Chiba Prefecture, where it is located, to do so. Universal Studios Japan in Osaka has already decided to relax the admissions limit in stages starting October 1st. Japan officially decides to lift its state of emergency, covering Tokyo and 18 other prefectures on Thursday as the country makes progress on its COVID-19 vaccine rollout. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, who will be resigning from his post on Thursday, said the government has focused on securing the healthcare system, implementing thorough infection prevention measures, and accelerating vaccination.
In a related news, the coronavirus state of emergency targeting nightlife in Tokyo and other Japanese regions will end this week. That, according, as mentioned by CJ earlier, by Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide, as cases nosedive nationwide. And here's the Prime Minister. Let's listen in.
多くの皆様のご尽力により、8月の半ば過ぎに2万5,000人を超えていた全国の新規感染者数は大幅な減少を続け、昨日は1128人となりました。病床の利用率はすべての都道府県において 50% を下回り、重症者は9月初めをピークに減少傾向にあります。
Now, 19 regions, including Greater Tokyo, economic hubs Osaka and Aichi, and tourist hotspots Kyoto and Okinawa are currently under the emergency that ends Friday. Even after the measure expires, the Prime Minister recommended that bars and restaurants close at 9 p.m. But many are already flouting the rules, saying that virus financial support from the government isn't enough to stay afloat. The nation's vaccine program got off to a slow start, but has picked up speed, with 58% of the population now fully vaccinated, more than the United States.
In other news, at least 16 people were injured, including 4 seriously, in an explosion that tore through an apartment building in Swedish city Gothenburg early Tuesday, according to authorities. Emergency responders added that the blast did not look like an accident in a country that has suffered dozens of actual or attempted bombings linked to violent criminal gangs in recent years. Local newspaper GP quoted police sources saying that they believed an explosive device could have been placed in one of the doorways. Press officer Ingrid Fredriksson said 4 of the people, 3 women and 1 man, were seriously injured. Media reports said some residents standing on their balconies were evacuated by fire crews with ladders, while others tied sheets together to climb down. Sweden has for years struggled to counter a rise in crime tied to criminal gangs, which has resulted in a spike of fatal shootings and bombings in an otherwise peaceful country.
Meanwhile, thousands of families sickened and forced from their Los Angeles homes after the nation's largest known natural gas leak have reached a settlement of up to $1.8 billion with a utility. Take a look. Now, the settlement with Southern California Gas Company and its parent company, Sempra Energy, will compensate 35,000 plaintiffs from the 2015 blowout that took nearly 4 months to control. The Aliso Canyon blowout led to the largest known release of methane in U.S. history and was blamed for sickening thousands of residents who moved out of their homes near the San Fernando Valley to escape a sulfurous stench and maladies, including headaches, nausea, and nosebleeds. The California Air Resources Board estimates that the leak was so massive that at its peak at the end of November in 2016, it increased the West Coast state's greenhouse gas output from methane by as much as 25%.
In other news, the Cumbre Vieja volcano in the Canary Islands continues to spew out lava and ash. The flows of the lava are slowing, creeping towards the sea, and the residents of several neighborhoods in the area have been confined due to fears of toxic gas emissions. La Cumbre Vieja, which straddles a southern ridge in La Palma in the Atlantic archipelago, erupted on the 19th of this month, spewing out rivers of lava that have slowly crept towards the sea. But on Monday morning, the lava and ash flow had stopped, and the week-long rumble of the eruption faded to silence before resuming its activity several hours later, according to an AFP correspondent at the scene. Smoke had continued to emerge from the top during the lull. The lava moving very slowly is currently between 800 and 1,000 meters, or around half a mile away from the shore, it said. An evacuation order affecting 4 areas is in place around Tazacorte, where it is expected to enter the sea. Officials have also set up an exclusion zone to head off curious onlookers.
Meanwhile, a South Korean court has issued an unprecedented order for assets seized from Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries to be sold to compensate World War II forced laborers, prompting Tokyo to protest on Tuesday. Now, on Monday, the Daejeon District Court ruled that 2 patents and 2 trademarks held by Mitsubishi Heavy should be sold to compensate 2 female Korean plaintiffs in their 90s, according to South Korea's Yonhap news agency. The proceeds are expected to raise enough to pay each victim around 209 million won, or $176,700 in compensation and interest. It is the first time a South Korean court has ordered the liquidation of Japanese corporate assets in a damages suit filed by World War II forced laborers. Japan and South Korea are both democracies, market economies, and U.S. allies. But their relationship has been strained for decades over Tokyo's brutal 1910 to 1945 colonial rule of the Korean Peninsula. Around 780,000 Koreans were conscripted into forced labor by Japan during the 35-year-old occupation, according to data from Seoul, not including women forced into sexual slavery by Japanese troops.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away. Welcome back to the news. The price of Brent crude oil jumped Tuesday above $80 for the first time in almost 3 years, on expectations for surging demand and concerns about supplies as the world slowly emerges from the pandemic crisis. Now, with the rollout of vaccines and easing of lockdowns this year, bets on demand for the black gold have surged, while an energy crunch in the northern hemisphere has sent natural gas prices to a 7-year high, leading to a spillover into the oil market. At the same time, crude stockpiles have shrunk, while increases in output by OPEC and other major producers, including Russia, have been unable to temper the rally in the commodity. Brent climbed 0.9% in morning Asian trade to $80.24, its highest level since October 2018. West Texas Intermediate gained 0.9% to $76.07.
Britain will issue up to 10,500 temporary work visas to lorry drivers and poultry workers to ease chronic staff shortages. Here's Patricia Rodriguez from our ABC UK Bureau. Patricia.
Britain will issue up to 10,500 temporary work visas to lorry drivers and poultry workers to ease chronic staff shortages in a U-turn on post-Brexit immigration policy. The short-term visas to run from next month until late December come as ministers grapple with a huge shortfall in drivers and some other key workers that has hit fuel supplies and additional industries. The decision to expand the critical work visa scheme is a reversal by Prime Minister Boris Johnson, whose government had tightened post-Brexit immigration rules, insisting that Britain's reliance on foreign labor must end. It had resisted the move for months despite an estimated shortage of around 100,000 drivers and warnings from various sectors that supplies would run short. The new measures will focus on rapidly expanding the number of new domestic drivers and including deploying driving examiners to help provide thousands of extra tests over the next 12 weeks. Meanwhile, the Education Ministry and partner agencies will spend millions of pounds training 4,000 people to become drivers, creating new so-called skills boot camps to speed up the process. Nearly 1 million letters will also be sent to all non-working licensed drivers to return to work. As well as threatening timely field supplies, the lack of lorry drivers has hit British factories, restaurants, and supermarkets in recent weeks and months. U.S. burger chain McDonald's ran out of milkshakes and bottled drinks last month. Fast food giant KFC was forced to remove some items from its menu, while restaurant chain Nando's temporarily shut dozens of outlets due to a lack of chicken. Supermarkets are also feeling the heat, with frozen food group Iceland and retail king Tesco warning of holiday product shortages. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Patricia Rodriguez. We live in interesting times.
China on Tuesday showed off its increasingly sophisticated air power, including surveillance drones, with an eye on disputed territories from Taiwan to the South China Sea and its rivalry with the United States. The country's biggest air show in the southern coastal city of Zhuhai comes as Beijing pushes to meet a 2035 deadline to retool its military for modern warfare. On Tuesday, the Air Force aerobatic team left colorful vapor trails as it maneuvered in formation, while visitors inspected new jets, drones, and attack helicopters on the tarmac. The CH-6, a prototype drone with a wingspan of 20.5 meters or 67 feet, was among the domestic tech unveiled. It is designed for surveillance and can also carry weapons for strike missions, according to open-source intelligence agency Janes. China still lags the United States in terms of tech and investment in its war machine, but experts say it is narrowing the gap. A U.S. intelligence report this year flagged China's growing influence as one of America's biggest threats.
Meanwhile, the Japanese react as Sumo's greatest ever champion, Makuho, has decided to retire over persistent knee trouble, according to Japanese media, leaving a gaping hole at the top of the ancient sport. Take a look.
最近休場されてたりしたので体の方がやっぱり辛いのかなと思ってお年も30何歳ですのでいろいろ今まで頑張ってこられてお疲れ様でしたっていう感じですかね。
横綱をこう張れるっていうのはすごい、一般的には短いですよね。全盛期っていうのかな。そういう意味ではすごいと思いますよ。10年以上かな。
長い間ね、ご苦労様でしたって。偉いもんだよね。日本まで来てさ、相撲を取って、横綱になって、長い間、なかなかできるもんじゃないよね。
The Mongolian-born 36-year-old has won a record 45 tournaments, 13 more than anyone else in history, but has been sidelined by injury for most of the year. He made his only appearance of 2021 at July's Nagoya Grand Sumo tournament, going unbeaten to win the title after missing all or part of the previous 6 competitions. He and 17 other wrestlers from his stable were forced to miss the next tournament, which ended on Sunday after a coronavirus outbreak. Local media said that Hakuho has decided to retire because of a right knee injury, bringing the curtain down on his illustrious career after 1,187 wins.
Finally, in our news, actor Daniel Craig and actress Lea Seydoux discussed the release of the latest James Bond film, No Time to Die, ahead of its world premiere in London on Tuesday after an 18-month delay caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Take a look.
A massive relief that we actually got here. Last year it felt sort of like it would never happen for obvious reasons, and you had to be just sort of resigned to it. That was just the way it was going to be, and we're just everyone's so proud and happy about this film that just to get it out there and for people to go and see it is momentous for everybody. This has just been sort of like for everybody, it's just been a very strange time. So there's been a lot of reflection about all sorts of things going on, not just Bond movies for me. But yeah, the making of it was just so important, I think. And again, I'm just so grateful for the fact that I got a chance to go and make one last one and be this one and to sort of finish telling the story. So a great deal of expectation surrounding this film. I believe in cinema. I think it's the job I do, and having this film come out right now and hopefully to give the industry some sort of boost. Cinema's here to stay, as far as I'm concerned. If we can help in some way, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's finally, happening. And I'm very happy that we'll have a premiere as well, because it's Daniel's last film, so it needed to be celebrated. No, I'm really, really happy, and I hope that people will love the film. It's not only like, of course, it's James Bond, and everybody's expecting, this film, but it's also like a reunion. And we'll celebrate cinema, and I think that people need to be entertainment. They need some lightness.
One tries at least once.
Film is expected to be Daniel Craig's last appearance as 007. 3 previously scheduled premieres in March and November 2020 and this April were all cancelled. Craig and co-stars including Rami Malek and Lea Seydoux will join Princess Charles and William on the red carpet at the glitzy screening before the film hits UK cinemas 2 days later and releases globally October 8th. Healthcare workers and armed forces members will also be present and have been invited to 10 other premieres across Britain in recognition of their work combating COVID-19.
You don't know what this is. He's going to kill millions.
Did you see that interview?
Something to watch out for.
Yeah, did you see that interview? Because Pierce Brosnan was teasing Craig, and he said, "Who will be the next James Bond?" And he said, "Definitely not him." That was funny. Okay, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
That's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. We'll see you again tomorrow.
We'll see you again tomorrow. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live
in interesting times.